Hi, good afternoon. So today we are going to be talking a little bit about the elephant in the room, which is all of these so-called AI fueled layoffs, right? And I'm putting that in quotations because we're seeing a lot of uncertainty and a lot of layoffs, job reductions, people being put on PIPs, which is, for those of you that don't know, it's a performance improvement plan, supposedly to help you improve. We'll talk about that later. So we're seeing a lot of this go on, and I do have a couple of sellers that are clients that are caught up in this, and I'm helping them navigate it, and also helping them just make sense of what's happening, right? Because a lot of times when our employer or the company we work for, either they lay us off or there's this massive layoff like what Oracle did. It looks like it was sudden and all of a sudden, but really, it really isn't. And it has been something that's been in the works for many, many months. In most cases, over 6 months. This stuff has been cooking and going on in the background, but we just didn't know it. And we didn't know that we need to look for these signals, right? So, if you want to go deeper into this topic, I have a newsletter. It went over the three signals that you need to pay attention to no matter what organization you work for. And these are pretty universal. So, check out the newsletter. I'll drop the link below. So, let's get into it. So, what I help my clients with, and what I'm very, very passionate about helping sellers with, is understanding the signals that are leading up to either a massive layoff, a RIF, reduction in force, or signs that your job or your role in particular may be in jeopardy. Pattern recognition. So when we're in the sales cycle, right, the same thing applies, right? The best way to learn how to sell, especially in an enterprise environment, but even if you're in mid-market SMB, is understanding patterns. And I'm working with a couple of clients now on doing that. And this is going to save you a lot of time, and it'll shorten your sales cycles, and it'll save you a lot of heartache in the future. So we're working on signal recognition, pattern recognition. And then we're working on up-leveling your business acumen and your top 10% seller thinking, right? And so this goes right along with this topic that we're talking about today, okay? So in a nutshell, what happened at Oracle? 30,000 people laid off at one fell swoop at one time. Block, which was formerly Square, laid off 4,000 people at one time. That's a kind of a different story, and I'll address that maybe in a little bit. But let's stick with Oracle and the 30,000 person layoff, okay? So it wasn't sudden. It wasn't a sudden thing. They didn't just decide yesterday that they were going to let go 30,000 people. And this was in sales and just across the business, right? And if we pay attention to the right signals and we're looking for the right things, which is a necessity now, then we would know that this is not something that they just came up with yesterday, okay? So nothing happens overnight. Decisions are made months before you're impacted. In a lot of cases, at least a year before individual people are impacted. And don't get me wrong, I hate that this is happening, but it is happening, and we need to get to grips with it, and we need to understand how we can protect ourselves and recognize the patterns earlier, okay? So the reality of it is what's happening now, 95 to 98% of the time, it's not about loyalty, effort, even about performance. Because what we're seeing and what I'm seeing across the board is sellers being put on PIPs when they're like 2% away from their goal or something like that. Like, that is not about performance, right? That's about something else. That's about business decisions. And we need to understand this, right? So decisions are happening in the background and above you. So as we say, above your pay grade, right? So these conversations, these decisions are happening, and don't feel bad if you miss them. But now that you know better, I'm going to show you what to look for, what the signs are, and what you can do about it, okay? So the problem is that we are, as sellers, we are reacting to what the end result is. We're reacting to the outcome. So what we're seeing is it's impacting us. Our role is being eliminated in 30 days. Tomorrow, we're being put on a PIP. That's 30 days is freaking unattainable. Like, we know that. And we're reacting to the outcome instead of maybe seeing the signs that were coming down the pike, down the line, right? So In a lot of cases, these signs are visible 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 months prior to us being impacted, but we're reacting to the end result of it, which is not where the decision is taking place, and it's not how we're going to protect ourselves. Like once it's already announced, it's already done. The trigger's already pulled, right? So everything feels random. It feels like it came out of the blue, but I'm here to tell you it didn't. So here are some of the signs that Oracle in particular, so there are signs within every organization, I don't care what organization it is, that are visible to everyone. Okay. And there are some signs that are visible to you as a seller inside your organization that are directly impacting you, but you don't know it. And you're not conscious of it. So you don't pay attention, or you may look at something may happen, and you may just put it out of your mind. You might not think it means anything, but everything means something. Okay, so let me go over the three visible signs, signals that were happening at Oracle above everyone's head or in the background that anyone could have looked at and said, "Hey, this might mean something for us, for me, for my role, etc." Okay, so number one is there was a massive drop in available job postings. Okay, this started as early as 6 months ago. So that was one of the clearest, most immediate signs that something was going to happen, that something was going on. There was about an 83% drop in daily job postings on platforms like LinkedIn and Glassdoor in just the span of a week. Okay, and there was a sudden hiring freeze just weeks before the layoffs happened. But before that even happened, there were salary freezes. Okay. I'm here to tell you that anytime an organization freezes salaries or hiring, something's up. Something is going to happen and is going to affect you. So pay attention when they say that. Now, your HR person, whoever is the front person for the organization, is not going to say, "We're planning this." They're not going to do that, right? They'll just say, we're freezing hiring, or freezing salaries, etc. Every time this has happened in my experience, and I have over 20 years sales experience, anytime my organization announced salary freezes or hiring freezes, they had planned to start cutting. Okay, so that's number one. That was visible by anyone. All you had to do was go to Glassdoor, LinkedIn, and see the job postings that have dropped precipitously. Okay, the second thing was they were starting to accumulate restructuring costs. Okay, so in quarter three of 2025, they accumulated some restructuring charges that were 5 times higher than that same period the last year. Okay, this is all public information. Anyone can go and look at it. Okay, so when you have that much expenditure in restructuring costs, something is going to happen. It may not happen today, it may not happen tomorrow, but it is imminent and something is going to happen. So you put number two, the restructuring costs, you put number one, the drop in job postings, the salary freezes, the hiring freezes. You just got to put two and two together, right? You got to figure something's going to happen. Number three, they had quiet layoffs and targeted cuts in 2024 and 2025. Okay, so through late 2024 and 2025, Oracle had some smaller, quiet layoffs across the cloud infrastructure and health divisions. Okay, that is not a coincidence. Anytime they're starting to pick apart divisions like that to avoid the mass layoffs, you got to figure something is going to happen. Again, all public information, anyone could have seen this, okay? And the last, number four, the last signal was that they announced a pivot to AI infrastructure, and they started pouring all this money in. There was a $300 billion agreement that they signed with OpenAI, okay, that turned not to be the way that they wanted it to. But anyway, they're spending all this money on AI infrastructure, architecture, etc. Now, when we're talking about that kind of money, we are talking about it has to come from somewhere. Okay, now you just got to put Again, you got to put two and two together, understand the era that we're in. They're spending all this money. It has to come from somewhere. We're talking about AI, and where is the most likely place it's going to come from? It's going to come from headcount. Okay, it's going to come from workforce reductions, cutting people essentially, right? And this is this is not new. So AI is not directly causing these job cuts. It's the anticipation of what AI might do, what it could do. Now, it may prove to be down the line, 6 months, 8 months, 9 months down the line, the companies are like, oh crap, we cut too many people. This AI is not doing what we anticipated that it would do. Mind you, now we have talked before about the promise of what AI will do. It hasn't been measured yet. There's no measurable effects yet on businesses, right? So they're just betting on it, right? And the market is expecting organizations to do things, and the market is rewarding organizations that reduce costs, reduce headcount, and these types of things, and invest in AI. They're rewarding that. So that is what is precipitating this behavior, right? This cutting all these people and cutting sellers, because that's how I work with. This is what they're being rewarded by financially, by the market, by investors, et cetera. So they're going to do what the market rewards them for. Just like as sellers, we should do what our buyers are rewarding us for, right? So that's good discovery, understanding business, having good business acumen. And by the way, having business acumen ties directly into this. Because when you understand how business works, number one, you know that your employer is not your security. And number two, you understand that they could cut me at any time, and I need to be paying attention to how my company makes money, the stuff that they're investing in, and the language that they're using. Now, the language that your organization is using from the day to day, you'll notice that when these job cuts start happening or when they start talking about it, the language will shift. Okay. And I noticed this at one of my previous employers. All of a sudden, they're talking about efficiency, pivoting, investment, infrastructure. When they start using that kind of language, you should be triggered. Something sounds like it's coming down the pike. Okay? And that is something that you should never ignore, right? When your gut tells you something is up and it feels wrong, it feels like I need to pay attention to this, don't ignore that. Every single time you ignore what your gut instinct is telling you about situations like these, especially your employment and your livelihood, you should definitely pay attention and take action. Okay? So, in a nutshell, money was moving around in the background. Again, everybody had visibility to this had you been watching and listening. Then the language changed. We're talking about efficiencies, we're talking about focus, we're talking about discipline, these kinds of things. And you'll notice the shift in the language. Like, it's pretty unmistakable when it happens. Okay. So when these things happen, it's a warning. It's not just messaging. They're not just putting out stuff to put it out. They're putting it out there because they are going to do something. Okay. So this is what we need to realize. Hiring slowed down. So backfilling of roles stopped. Salary freezes, hiring freezes. There's more scrutiny around purchases, around what you as a seller may be doing. They may start talking about pips, like they may start floating that. Like that happened to me one time when I was in an organization, but we'll talk about that later. So, and by the time they start talking about this languaging, right? By the time you notice the language starts shifting, finance is already involved, right? They're already involved. They're already architecting something. Okay. Now, again, this is just business. Okay. Businesses are protecting themselves. They are orchestrating their future. So you need to orchestrate yours and protect yours. Okay. This is just how things go. And I'm sad that it's happening, and it hurts me to see sellers being laid off like this, anyone being laid off. But, I work with sellers. And so this is very near and dear to my heart. And this is why I do what I do, is to help sellers protect themselves, like protect you if you're an AE, if you're a seller, to protect you and to kind of help you through some of the psychological things that happen in the wake of this. Okay. So once these things start happening, you hear the language, start to shift. You start noticing the money moving around. You start noticing, the hiring freezes, nobody's getting a raise, everybody's salary is freeze, et cetera, et cetera. By that time, it'll start showing up materially, right? So you may get put on a PIP, which is a performance improvement plan, which is something in principle I'm against for my own personal reasons. Like I've seen them misused like 99% of the time. So I'm really against them. It may be in the form of a PIP. It may be in the form of territory changes. Okay. So maybe they're shrinking the territories. Maybe they're, you know, moving one person out and putting one person in. It could any kind of territory shifts that don't make sense to you. Question it. Ask yourself. Ask whoever it is that's doing it, like what is precipitating this? I don't understand, right? Just have that dialogue. And you'll definitely notice more pressure. So with a couple of sellers that I'm working with now, their organizations are owned by PE, which is private equity. A couple of them have taken VC money, okay? And once that happens, there's a lot of pressure because especially if the organization is underperforming, because the PE wants their money back. They want their money out, and they've been promised, in a lot of cases, they've been promised a return, and they have been promised that return of a certain amount, a certain X amount, and within a certain time frame. So if the organization is not performing, like just put this in your mind, right? The organization is not performing like they think they should, right? They've missed their revenue targets, a couple sellers have missed their goals, et cetera. And they've taken money. Eventually, the PE firm is going to be like, when are we getting our money back and what's happening? So then that trickles down to you as a seller, and you're going to notice these things manifesting. So you're going to hear them start talking about a PIP. You're going to hear them start talking about territory changes. You're going to hear them start talking about everybody needs to make 100 cold calls a week, stuff like that. Like I've personally heard that from a couple of people that I work with, right, in their organization. And I knew 6 months ago, I'm like, when my brain was triggered, and I'm like, it's only a matter of time before the PE starts getting antsy, and they're like, when are we going to get our money out? And then that's going to trickle down. It's going to have all these downstream effects, right? And that's only when we notice it. Okay, so you just have to know these things for yourself, and you have to start putting 2 and 2 together. Okay. And this is also what we talk about when we talk about business acumen, not only for the buyers, but we have to pay attention to the organization that we're in. We have to know how they make money. We have to know, are they seeking funding? Do they have funding? Are they owned by a PE? Who controls it? Did they take VC money? All of these things, because this is contributing to this element of surprise that we're seeing when a seller gets a PIP or entire organizations get gutted. 30,000 people, 4,000 people at block, that's a different story. But that contributes to this element of surprise, like, oh, we didn't know this was happening. But if you had paid attention to these signals, if you had that business acumen, then you would have been paying attention, and you would have known something is about to happen. Maybe I need to start making some moves to protect myself, okay? So it's super, super important. Like, I really want you guys to get that, okay? So here's the end result. Here's the truth. So you can be doing everything right. And I work with some very smart sellers, like some very smart sellers. Don't get me wrong, not all of them. I work with some very smart people, and they are hitting their goals and so forth and so on. And yet a couple still ended up on PIPs. Okay. And entire divisions have been consolidated, and they've maybe cut half. Okay. So one of the first things that I ask my clients when I first start working with them, and here's a little bit of the psychological piece, and I'll just go into this very, very briefly. If you want to go into this a little bit deeper, you can message me. When we're working for an organization, inherently there's an imbalance of power, okay? Because we are the employee and they are the employer, and they hold the cards, okay? So when we start noticing this shifting of the language, the shifting of demands, the moving around of money, all these things that we just talked about, unless you do something to bolster your side, it is always going to be imbalanced psychologically, okay? So one of the first things that I ask my clients when I start working with them, I ask them, Do you know your closing ratio? Do you know how many deals you're scheduled to close, how much, what the dollar amount is, what the ARR is, all of this? Yes, I do. Do you have it on the spreadsheet for yourself? No, I don't. Now, I always tell them you need to make a spreadsheet. I have one built already. You need to keep all of your deals, everything that you're working on a separate spreadsheet for yourself. And the reason is this: it is a lot psychological and has to do with this balance of power. Okay. So when things like this happen, when we're talking about layoffs, when we're talking about PIPs and so forth and so on, what happens is we as sellers, we end up feeling very defensive. And the first thing that we want to do is defend ourselves. In our brain, this is just human psychology. In our brain, we want to defend ourselves and we want to prove ourselves. Okay. But what the first thing is that we need to think, we think it's a deficit within ourselves. But the first thing that we need to think is that really true? And where's the evidence for that? Where's the evidence that I'm actually underperforming? Where's the evidence that this specific thing is happening? Now, if you're relying on your CRM or whatever the company owns to tell you, then you're relying on them and we're still dealing with this imbalance of power, okay? And I put it like this to a client the other day. Nature abhors a vacuum, okay? So if you have not developed your skills and you have not dealt with that imbalance of power bit and you leave everything in the hands of your organization, the vacuum on your side is going to be filled by whatever your organization tells you. Okay, that is it's just the nature of things. It's how the world works. Okay, so by the same token, on the other hand, if you make it your business to up-level your skills, get your business acumen better, record everything for yourself, you have the evidence, you have the proof. So when someone comes to you and says you're doing this or that, you don't automatically go with that. You say, let me do a gut check and see, is that really true? Where's the evidence? And you can look on your side and say, half of it is true, half of it isn't, or it's completely false, and then you can refute it, either with them or with in your own brain. And that matters more, right? So we don't want to be on the defensive, because then if we have to look for another role or something should happen, we don't want to bring that baggage into that process. Okay. So it's really, really important to have your own set of information, even though your company's CRM has its set of information, have your own information that you can rely on. And then you know exactly what you did and no one can tell you otherwise. Or you can go and do a quick check and say, is this true? Where's the evidence, right? So you have the evidence for yourself. So that's super important. This is one of the quickest ways you can protect yourself, because when a mass layoff happens, or when these PIPs are happening or so forth and so on, it often feels like a barrage, and you need something to lean back on. And you need something to bolster your side and your psychology, right? You want to have a positive mindset the entire time where you become unshakable in that way. Okay, so this is really important. I know I belabored the point, but this is a lot of what we're dealing with when we're talking about all these layoffs and all this stuff. Okay, so the bottom line is, whatever organization you are in, whether it's public or private. Now, Oracle happened to be public, so you can see all their information, you can see their communication, you can see their meetings, you can see their 10K, whatever else. So all that's public information, but you can still, even if you work for a private company, you can still tune in to what's happening within your organization and figure out what you need to do. Figure out, is this going to be a problem for me later? Why is this all of a sudden this shift towards this efficiency language? What does that mean? What does a hiring freeze, a salary freeze mean? It's not good for you. Right? So we need to pay attention to this and action on it when we start hearing this, and not, like, as sellers, I think I was the same way. We have a way of, like, sometimes we have tunnel vision, right? So we're just focused on the job at hand and so forth, but we don't actually think this could actually be negative for me. And I need to get on top of this. I need to get ahead of it. This means something. Let me look further into it. Okay. And that is empowering you as a seller to protect yourself and be better. And when you're armed with more information and you're not in the dark, because that's what precipitates a lot of this stuff. It's happening in the dark, and then everybody feels blindsided, and then everybody's knocked off kilter as a result, right? That's a big part of it. So if you can arm yourself with information, then you have foresight and you know that something's going to come down the line, but you know you can take proactive action to either counter it, fix it, or if you need to move on, right? Or make preparations to do that. Okay. So that's what I have for today. Learn how to read the signals, understand that nothing happens in the background. This Oracle situation and most layoff situations have been planned for 3 to 6 months prior to them actually happening. We're just feeling the outcome, and unfortunately, we just react to the outcome. Okay, so everything feels sudden if we're in the dark, and by the time it hits us, it has already been done and planned. Okay, so up level your business acumen, start thinking like a top 10% seller. This AI invading into the world, I don't know how good it is for us. Like everything that we can do, I'm not sure that we should do. Okay. And right now, organizations they're operating on the premise that all this stuff has already happened, that it's already proven, they're going to get the returns and so forth. And this is what the market is expecting and rewarding financially. So they're going to do that. So you need to protect yourself also. Okay. Read the signs, start thinking like a top 10 seller. Don't let AI scare you, but work with it to protect yourself, bolster your skills, and create a skill set that travels with you. You can create a skill set that you can take anywhere and be successful. Like that is the takeaway from this. So don't ignore the signals. Don't think they don't mean something, because everything absolutely means something. And even with this Oracle situation, it could have been predicted. Okay? So that is it for me today. Again, I'll drop the link to the newsletter. I go deeper into that, along with the 3 signals that the sellers at Oracle could have looked at to predict some of this, or at least protect themselves. And if you feel so inclined, please do subscribe to the newsletter, and I put it out every week. Okay? So have a great day. I will be back next Thursday with another topic relevant to account executives and sellers, regardless of what industry you're in. Have a great day. Talk to you soon. Bye now.